Hey guys, welcome to an Out of Cycle live stream. This is a Monday night one. This would be show number 49 of the year. And this is a continuation of going over the topics that came up in the community tab from a few days ago. I think if I pull it up, I can scroll up here and show the one I want to talk about. Julia said, talk about the narcissistic intent. And that's what we're going to hit tonight. So wait for a few people to show up. I'm going to go sans music. I was editing that video the other day and was a little disappointed in the music that was in there. It's a little distracting. So hopefully you guys are doing good this Monday evening. If you can see and hear me, please give me a 1. And then we'll jump into this. Actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go like this so I can grab this and use this as a screenshot. So now if I can just get my little thing over in the right direction. All right, I see some 1s. Awesome. So let me get this ready. Whoops. I'm going to go open with preview. Put this over here down at the bottom. And close that out. I'll just move this over here. Okay. So, awesome. So I got some 1s so you guys can hear and see me. So hopefully everything will go just swimmingly. Okay. All right, so today's topic is going to be talking about the narcissist's intent. This came from a comment that came in the community tab the other day. And let me see if I can pull it up. It may or may not pull up. There it goes. Julia said, talk about the narcissist's intent, please. And this is actually a reoccurring topic that comes up a lot. And I can actually relate to this because I struggled with this myself whenever I was trying to figure out their intent. What exactly are they trying to accomplish? And you can rack your brain driving yourself crazy trying to figure that one out. Because you can't just rationalize the whole thing. And I'm going to talk about this in a couple of different ways, and I'll get to the meat of it in a minute. But when you're first struggling with this, you're constantly asking yourself, why? Why would this person do this? There has to be a reason. Nobody does these things just because. And the thing you have to be careful about on that is getting wrapped up in that, because what happens is you really start to, I don't know why this is locked. You really start to get to the point where you start driving yourself crazy. I can recall thinking the exact same things. Why is this becoming so difficult? There has to be a reason. What did I do that was so bad that caused this horrific outcome to come up? And the thing on this is like I said, you try to rationalize it. You try to rationalize the irrational. So you make excuses for it. You say it's because friends are giving them bad advice, or they're taking something out of context, or they don't understand the process, or whatever the reason is. And I see a few comments coming in. Kootenai's mom says, because they want to see us suffer, because they want to break you on purpose. And I honestly think it's a little bit more simpler than that. one of the things is that you have to remember that somebody with strong narcissistic traits, typically as a result of the trauma that resulted in this condition, typically what happens is they get stuck at a particular emotional age. Think of it this way. Now, for us that have kids, I'm sure you can think back at the time whenever your child was younger, maybe early adolescent or whatever, and their reasoning skills just aren't really there. Now, imagine taking that mentality of that, 8-year-old, little human, putting them in the body of a 38-year-old or 40-year-old, 27-year-old, whatever. But putting that mentality in an adult body that now has the power of law enforcement, the power of the family court, and the reasoning skills of a toddler. It's a really dangerous combination, but it really boils down to that simple. Because they only think about themselves. They don't have the cognitive ability to really think about what they're doing, how it affects other people, and absolutely no ability to understand how it would affect their child. And Michael says, fuel, absolutely. But it's less complicated, in my opinion, than we really think. Because here's the flip side to it. If you have a young child who acts like this, depending on their size, you throw them over your shoulder, you take them to their room, you say, you're staying in your room until you calm down, or you're grounded until X amount of time, and you shut the door. The problem is you can't, the problem is you can't do that with an adult. Conversely, think of it this way. Oftentimes we get into the situation where we try to reason with them. Now imagine trying to reason with a toddler, trying to explain to them why, what they're doing is wrong. Without having the ability to have some type of control over them, as in, a cause and effect, you're in a horrible mess. And I can see Lyle says, I tried that with my ex. MFA says, I'll post this one, says, we are food to them, positive supply, negative supply, someone to complain about, brag about, take your pick. And think about it. Think about how a lot of, even teens, they get so wrapped up in the drama. They don't even know what's really important. Again, see how that correlates to the behavior of more than likely the narcissistic person in your life? They don't have the reasoning abilities to really do this. And it sets up a scenario or sets up a situation that will drive the person who's trying to operate in this environment crazy. Because it is crazy making. Because you think you're dealing with an adult. Because the entire time up till this disaster manifested itself, you thought you were dealing with a rational adult human being. Even if you fundamentally probably knew that something wasn't quite right, you still didn't ever think about having to deal with this. I would even guess that if you knew other people who had gone through toxic relationships, toxic divorces, you probably could look at that and go, holy crap, that is insane what is happening over there in Billy and Susie's relationship. But you never correlated it happening with you. And I'll even say that, I definitely fell into that white knight category. My ex, when we first started dating, told me about all the horrible boyfriends that she'd had before, how they disrespected her, they treated her badly, and she was just the poor defenseless little butterfly, poor little victim in this story that was just misunderstood and abused over and over again. And it wasn't until my situation, the relationship fell apart. We were separated, getting ready to go through the divorce process, where I had that epiphany that, oh my God, I'm the next version of the story. Even though I was with her for 20 years, I'm like, oh my God, that's me now. Now I'm the jerk. I'm the meanie. I'm the horrible person that just treated her wrong. And it's really tough. So, getting back, let me pop this back up. When you get back into this particular question, is talking about the narcissist's intent. We give them so much more credit for being smarter, more intelligent, more strategic. And the reality is it's all about them, and it's all at the mentality of whatever maturity level that they stopped at. And the really frustrating part about that is until you get that. And let me ask the question for the people who are watching this right now. How many people were driving themselves crazy trying to understand, just give me a one if you agree with this, trying to understand what the person was doing. It's like, how in the world are we in this situation where this is my life and these things are happening right now? I'm going to look and see what some of the other people are saying. Oh, this is interesting. Lyle says, sometimes life gives you a bad hand. I think of all the women I could have married. I was just chatting with somebody about that the other day. Okay, cool. I'm seeing a bunch of ones. I really think, thanks Matt, thanks Frugal. I have such a hard time with Frugal Fugal. It just drives me crazy. Carol, Rob, Ann M, Kootenai, Jamie, Matt, done with that too. Lyle says one I still don't understand. It's incredibly tough. And it's one of those things that I think it was an excellent question that Julia posed, because I know it's one that a lot of people, especially in the early parts of this, go through. And let me just, before we move on to this, and we'll jump into other questions and stuff, and then I'll pull this part out as a separate video. But it's important to understand this, because you will drive yourself crazy trying to figure out why. One additional little story I'll tell you is, I remember at one point when I was before I knew about NPD, cluster B, and all those things, I remember having a conversation with my ex, and I'm like, what happened? How did we get here? How did we go from 20 plus years of marriage to this catastrophe? And the answer that came back is, well, we both got bad advice. And I was just like, what? And there were so many times where I would sit there day after day, hour after hour, trying to just play back in my head, back on this, what is the intent? What's the reason? Why is this happening? And guys, the reality is, the answer is simple. You're dealing with a toddler who doesn't have the reasoning abilities to focus on anything other than themselves. And I'm not trying to be like, we're all the poor victims and, whatever. But I mean, the reality of it is if until you realize that, until you accept that, you are stuck. We've been going over in the last few days a lot of older topics, And I think about where I am today compared to where I was before. And I find it incredible to even be at this point in my life that I'm doing as well as I can. I'm actually doing better than I ever thought possible. I mean, even a few years ago when I started this channel where I thought it was the best it would ever be, it's still gotten better. But the thing is you have to understand what you're dealing with and what's happening. And trying to rationalize and figure out a reason for the actions of your toxic ex will drive you insane if you're using your own level of maturity and thought process to figure it out. Because it's not the same. You can't use that type of logic, apply it to someone who is incapable of using that type of logic. I feel like I'm really being negative. I mean, I hope you guys don't think I'm just lashing out at the ex, but I think it's critically important that you understand this, because a question like that, I'm going to pop back into this. A question like that, what is their intent? You're still focusing on their issues and on them. The better question is, how did I get to this point? Or how do I take my life back? It's like, okay, I've dealt with this. I get it. I'm tired of thinking about them. And to be perfectly honest, I was stuck in that mode for about a good 2.5, 3 years, maybe a little bit like 3.5. And it was tearing me apart. And I had to hit emotional rock bottom to where I was able to say, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't be thinking about the reasons why that person is doing those things. It doesn't matter. So on that is that topic. And let me now look for what you guys were saying in case I missed something. Let's see here. Oh my God. JS says, question, Duane. In your opinion, is it ever okay to belt someone to a chair? That would be a no. I mean, no. The answer is no. Oh my God. Some people just are just not right. All right. Okay, so Free Indeed says, I recently found out about something called post-separation abuse. I think that's what I'm going through with my ex. Do you know anything about that type of abuse? I haven't actually heard of the term. I'll have to look that up. But I think most people in these situations do, right? I mean, it's either financial, it's alienation of kids, if that's the case. If there's no kids, it could be trying to alienate family members. So I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. I'll have to look into that. But my gut feeling is that I think that's what you're talking about. And I think that most people in our situations do actually go through that. Miss Devil says, I really don't want to know how I would have ended up if my parents never divorced, even though I think about it sometimes, maybe narcissistic myself. Well, see, here's the flip side to, okay, let me back up. I think if you had a good family life and loving parents and people who really helped you develop in those critical early childhood development ages and did everything right, then I think all of us would be in a much different position. Just because our parents don't divorce, a lot of people still have really crappy parents. I mean, for lack of a better word, even if they stayed together, and that's still going to create a whole bunch of pain. Now, if we had parents who loved us, who nurtured us, but let us grow, let us figure ourselves out, but gave us a safety blanket to where not like, bubble children, but enough to where, you could do some things, but still know your parents were going to be there and stuff like that. I think those are the people that are better apt at going into adulthood. Let's see here. Sunny Day says, I really don't know healthy relationships. Taking this time to stay single so I can understand better. That right there is critical to what you need to do in these situations to really heal from it. Because when you can do that, and we were talking about this the other day, you can create better boundaries. You know what's right and wrong. You're okay with yourself, so you're not desperate to have someone in your life. And you're, a higher quality person, so to speak, or higher value, I guess, emotional value. So Kootenai's mom says they need constant conflict. They can't be alone with their own thoughts. Yeah, that's a big problem with these toxic people. Marcus has said, you're right, Duane, they don't think like us and it takes a while to realize it. Oh, it took me a long time. I was beating my head against the wall at that. Oh, Matt had a thing, so let's see what he said. I like this one. Matt says, before I initiated divorce last month, I'd spend entire days pondering my wife's behavior. I finally realized there's no strategy. She's not playing 3D chess. She's a 36-year-old abusive toddler playing checkers. He didn't say that, but I'm adding that. Absolutely. You know what, though? I mean, Matt, for you to have all this knowledge and then be starting this, you are in such a much better situation. I really feel for the people who go through their separation and divorce before understanding what they're dealing with and then finding out, because so much damage has already been done and you're behind the power curve. I mean, you can still recover. I mean, I was able to recover, but it does make things a lot more complicated. Uh-oh, I have a comment, or not a comment, but a text. Why is this not popping up? Come on. That's weird. Can't even get it to come up. That is bizarre. Anyways, I digress. All right, so let me scroll down a little bit. Oh wow, we got 49 people tonight. Awesome. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did not do this as a multicast on Facebook. I just figured I would do this just on YouTube. Oh, this is funny. Chris says, Duane, I found that the strategy I learned from you to just agree with them, then all of a sudden they don't want to do it. I don't remember specifically saying that, but what I will say on that is, often it's same toddler type logic, right? It's like reverse psychology. You have to be sly about it. But if they think that you don't care about something, or you care about something different, then they'll switch. So that's pretty funny. I'm glad it's helpful for you, though. NM says, I believe my ex is a borderline. He is a male, not female, but he is so abusive and then wonders why I'm not there for him when he is injured/ill. It's so bizarre. No, it's very common, actually. And see, you bring up a great point. Is a lot of times people get in this trap where they think, all men are a certain way and all women are a certain way. And the problem with that type of thinking is you can sit there and you can justify their behavior because, that's the way all guys are. And if it's, you know what I mean? It's like if you fit in those patterns. I was watching a comedy show the other day and it was I can't remember which one. It might have been the Seth Meyers one on Netflix. And it was pretty funny, but there was a section in there that was really kind of cringeworthy because he was talking about how his wife interacts and how his wife treats him and stuff. And people were laughing, and I'm just listening to this going, oh my God, this is part of the problem because it normalizes this behavior. People are going, oh yeah, my girlfriend does that, or my wife does that, or oh yeah, he does that. And it sets the stage where abusive behavior is normalized. And unfortunately, it's not funny, but, I mean, they're going to continue to hit those type of things. Crystal says they lack impulse control, just like children. That's why they end up destroying themselves eventually, burning bridges, rationalize disasters in their wake. And see, and the thing is, again, if you think about this in the context of, when a child does stuff like this, everyone's kind of at the same emotional thing, and there's only so much real damage, right? It's not, but it's still painful, right? I mean, whenever you realize at a young age that your friends, stabbed you in the back or whatever, or did something to you, it was painful, but it feels at the time like it's lifelong consequences, but in reality it isn't. But you take somebody who's an adult, and now your relationship with people has been destroyed, or your kids' relationship's been destroyed, potentially, finances, your future. I mean, it's like some serious consequences because of their lack of impulse control. Thanks, Crystal. That was a good one. Matt says, I'm pretty scared about the money and custody, but every time I feel like I wish I didn't have to do this, and maybe I'm wrong, she opens her mouth and reminds me how right I am. Matt, you know what, man? I will tell you what you just said right there is exactly the way I felt in the early parts of my separation and / divorce. There were times where I would sit there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm making a mistake. What am I doing? Because I'm the one that filed, but I'm thinking, I must be making a mistake. And then fortunately, in retrospect, it didn't feel good at the time. She would take her bony little finger. You guys ready for it? Take her bony little finger and go, boop, right in my eye. And I'd be like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. I forgot this hurts. So yeah, no, I'm good. I'm staying on course. Oh, okay. Free Indeed says, yes, post-separation abuse, any smear campaign, triangulation with kids, teachers, doctors, therapists, and especially now in the court. So glad I found your channel. You've been helping me with co-parenting, quote unquote, co-parenting. Yeah, see, that is everything you just said. That's the key. It's the smear campaign. I dealt with the thing with teachers and doctors, the therapist. She was trying to use a therapist to turn the kids. I mean, it was a freaking nightmare. I sit here sometimes and sometimes I struggle with how to talk about this stuff because I could sit here right now and I could allow myself to reconnect to those feelings that I had back then. And, and I think in retrospect, after some earlier some videos recently where I kind of did that, it isn't helpful because it makes it seem like I'm still in that mode. And granted, yes, I am still in the divorce family court mode. I still have 4 more years on my sentence before I am paroled, or get out, I guess, depending on how you look at it. I guess if she gets married in 4 years, I'm done. If she doesn't, then I still have to do the alimony thing, but it's, but it doesn't affect me the way it used to. I am tired. I'll tell you that. I'm tired of dealing with it. I'm tired of the shenanigans. I'm tired of the crap with the kids and stuff. But, I'm focused on doing the best I can, trying to help my kids the most I can. And once they're adults, they're adults. I can only do so much. Brittany says, is it normal for people to make 2 fake Facebook accounts? And do they really mean it when they say they're sorry for what they did or just wanting attention? Because every time I hide this person's attention, okay, I missed part of what you said, Brittany. Okay, well, let's just take that for, okay, is it normal for people to make fake Facebook accounts? Well, I guess to be perfectly honest, my Facebook account, the one that I used, the Duane Robert one, technically is a fake account. Technically, it's the main one I use now. But my real account, I very rarely get into, but that's the one all my family and friends are on. And everything I do associated with this channel is off of, pseudo alias, I guess. But in the context of what you're saying, no, it's not normal. It's not normal for people to be making accounts to use that to try to communicate with you. And then asking the question, do they really mean it when they say they're sorry? No, they don't. Well, okay, let me ask you this. People can apologize. and they can be legitimate. But it always boils down to their actions and the words. If those apologies are followed up with actions that demonstrate that they have real remorse for what happened and that they want things to be different or better, well then yeah. But typically, I would say 95% of the time with the people we're dealing with, no, it's a manipulative thing to try to pull you back in. We have one viewer who's in the early parts of this who is just incredibly struggling with this, and it's really tough to read the comments because she's saying she's giving her story. She's talking about how abusive this person is, but then they'll apologize. And then in the same paragraph, it'll be, but I'm so confused. And it's like, the answer's right there. Like Brittany, in your thing, the answer's right there. This person is toxic. They don't deserve a spot in your life because all it brings is negativity. There was a meme I saw on Facebook the other day, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'll try to remember it. Basically, it said something along the lines of, if someone loves you, you'll know it. If they don't, you'll be confused. And I think that's key. If you're confused, or you're asking questions, or you're trying to decipher someone's intent, the intent isn't that they care. I mean, and I say that like, duh, but I spent 20 some odd years where all the actions were right there in my face, demonstrating to me that they didn't care. They didn't really care, but I didn't want to believe it. So when I say it's hard to see that other comment, not so much what Brittany's saying, but people who are really struggling, I lived that. I mean, so I'm not trying to be judgy. I have a lot of empathy for people who are struggling on this because I do remember spending 2 decades knowing something wasn't right, but always trying to rationalize it. So Brittany says, DSD, yes, every time with this person. Thank you. Yeah, there's your answer right there. It's right there. It's so hard to see it though, because you don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe this is true. You want to think, oh, okay, they really mean it this time. It was a misunderstanding. They were having a bad day. They really do care about me, and this time is real. It's not. And here's the thing. Let's say they just were having a bad time, and maybe there is some reason, which I don't think there is, but let's say hypothetically there was. At the end of the day, you have to make the decision of what you are worth and what you're going to allow into your life. And anything that's not driving you to your better and higher good, or you're becoming the best version of yourself, or however you want to say it, do they really deserve a spot in your life? Now, there are a few situations where I think people have a little bit more latitude or more leeway. Children, even if as they become adults, sure, you're going to give them a little bit more because you have that vested interest because they're biologically yours, right? Some family, because you don't really want to, write them off. Oh, thank you so very much for that. Free Indeed Super Chat says, thank you for the great info and love the lives. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the Super Chat. I really appreciate it. But I think that's the, the reality of it. And it's tough. It's tough to be in a position to say, I'm not going to let this person be in my life anymore. This just isn't going to happen. Oh, I like this. Committed to the Shift says, you'll learn the terminology and realize the true meaning of gaslighting looking back. Yeah. There's a lot. And one thing I'll say on this, and Committed to the Shift, that was a really good comment, is I'll also say that you're going to go through this iteration on this. Oh, hey, Sai. Well, glad you could jump in. When you go through the iteration on this, you're gonna figure something out, and then a little bit later, as you kind of grow in your own emotional maturity on this, there's other things you're gonna be like, oh, that's what that meant, right? It's like I didn't get that before, but I get it now. It's a growing thing. Chris says, sadly, When you have kids, you deal with a narc until at least they become 18. Yeah, and okay, yes. And I would also say, I'm going to leave this up on the screen. What I would also say is you have to be very careful that if everything you try doesn't work and your kid becomes an adult and they are being narcissistic and toxic and vindictive, at some point you have to say, okay, enough is enough. You know, I still love my kids, but I'm not going to allow myself to continually be abused by them. And that's a tough one, but. Ann M says, DSD, did your kids ever wake up to what their mother is, or is she manipulating them still? Oh, of course she's still manipulating them. And I would say, here's the other thing you have to remember. We, more than likely, were in denial when we were there. 20 years, 2 decades, right here, this knucklehead. Why in the world would I think a child would be able to see through what I couldn't see through when I was just married to the person? You know, it is incredibly tough for a child to see all of this. Okay. There are going to be times where just like with us, there's going to be times where they see through the mask and the reality peers through and they're looking at the monster and they could see the monster. And then a few days later, the monster gives them cookies and they forget about it, right? So you got to keep that in mind because it's really, really tough on the kids. A&M, if you've watched some of my other videos, there was a period of time where my youngest was really having a hard time with her mom. I mean, who knows? Either periodically she just diverts her attention, and she redirected her attention to our youngest and gobbling up. Now my youngest is gobbling up the breadcrumbs. It's negatively affecting my relationship with our youngest. You know, and I don't know. I mean, maybe, you know, you guys often ask if she knows about the channel. And I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm pretty open on this. If she talked about it and knew, I mean, and saw those videos and be like, oh crap, you know, and was able to go, oh shoot, I'm making a mistake. Oh my God, I see what's going on. Let me just devote some extra attention. That could be. But bottom line is what I just want to roll this back around. Expect that your ex, male or female, is going to continue this type of stuff, is going to drip feed them attention. If I hate to say this, but if you're lucky and your ex is overtly vicious and vindictive and attacking of the kids and isn't covert at all, there's a chance that pain will be so great that your kid will actually see through it. I would say that's like maybe like a 10% of the time. Most of the time, it's going to be this cat and mouse thing, just like we did when we were in the relationship. So that's my thought on that, A&M. I'm going to have to get out of here in a few because my youngest is actually coming over in a little bit to grab a project she needs to work on. So I need to shut everything down before she comes over. So we'll go for a couple more minutes. Let me look at some of the other comments. Miss Devil says, actually, how high is the risk that these people are getting violent? My dad is saying he's going to harm people for years and in detail how he will do it, but so far he didn't try something. Well, okay. The problem is if somebody is saying what they're potentially going to do, I think there's a higher probability of them being able to do it. Most of the time, a toxic narcissistic person will tell you exactly what's going on, what they're doing, or what they're going to do. Now, legitimately, does that mean they're going to do it? I don't know. The reality of it is, I don't care who it is. If it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, but if someone is using the threat of violence because it's a control mechanism. I mean, there's a possibility, Miss Devil, that it's not legit. They won't do it, but they're saying it to try to get you to conform to what they want, right? You know, and to be perfectly honest, that is, at the very least, that's emotionally abusive, and nobody deserves to have that in their life, in my opinion. So if it continues, anything else happens, then you should take legal remedy to make sure you protect yourself. See, here's the other thing that's really funny. And Miss Devil mentions this, and we'll just, for the sake of argument, I think, making sure the door's not opening, I think that most people in our situation, we second guess it, right? We don't think that a person's going to be as evil, that they're going to do these things, and it makes us incredibly vulnerable. Whereas then you take somebody who's on the opposite side of it, and they would use what that little, even that potential of a threat to blow it out of, well, you shouldn't be making those threats, but using anything to make it a restraining order, a protective order, to control, right? So it's both ways. You can use the threat of violence as control, and then you can take words out of context. And we have a few people on the channel right tonight that's happened to, that they've said something in the heat of the moment that person was able to use against them and effectively crush them. So it's just, I find it amazing how you can really see who legitimately are the targeted, abused people, because they don't just run out and do protective orders, or are really, they think, well, it's not really true. Well, they're just blowing off steam, right? Kind of like this. Crystal says, love is blind, mute, and dumb. And unfortunately, that's what happens with us, right? That's funny. Okay, let's see. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Anm says, cat and mouse is exactly how I used to describe my relationship with my child's father. Yeah. Oh, I think I missed something. AK says, Duane, question. I am worried my 7-year-old seems to be showing all the same traits as her mom, narc mom. She is always complaining. I teach her to learn to be happy and honest, but her mom wipes all the progress. Well, okay, AK, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Remember, a narcissist is at a certain emotional age. If your child can continue to mature, they can potentially grow out of it. It isn't helpful whenever they have a parent demonstrating these behaviors and making it, normalizing it. But what oftentimes, like maybe 50% of the time, and that's okay. I don't really have the statistics, but sometimes what will happen is a child will start to mature past their parent and be like, wow, that's weird. AK, continue to be the loving parent. Use with this time, try to teach her to not do, why it's better not to do that and stuff. Don't bash on the mom, but use them as learning exercises. And unfortunately, you're going to have to kind of run this through the 7 to 16-year-old, maybe 17-year-old, to see how it plays out. But don't give up. And I say that because I felt the same way. There were things where I'm like, seriously, it's possible, but keep in mind, in a lot of ways, probably it's normal 7-year-old behavior. The sad part is that if you had a stable home when that 7-year-old is doing those things, then you could appropriately deal with it in a way that helps them mature appropriately. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh, Matt. Let's see. Did Matt have a... Oh, why would you ask such a question, Chris? Chris says, question, Duane, how long do you have to pay spousal support? For the rest of my life until she gets married or dies. Let's keep our fingers crossed that she gets married. Let's see. All right, on that, I'm going to shut down so I don't get myself in a bind. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I do intend to try to do another show tomorrow, although I have to be an hour and a half away for a doctor's appointment. I'm doing my sleep study tomorrow night. So if I can, I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow, but it'll be kind of a little bit up in the air. So, and I'm going to what I'll do is I'll grab Matt's question and I'll do that as a separate video, Matt. So I will try to record that tomorrow. Oh crap, that just moved. All right, let me try this one more time. It keeps moving. Damn it. Let me try it one more time. Okay, nobody make a comment. Okay, I copied it. That was hilarious. Every time I would grab it, it would move, and my little box was moving. I apologize. All right, guys. What I would say is, for people who had questions that you want me to hit, come back to this video when it posts in a little bit later today, whenever it becomes a real video, and just leave the question in the comment below, and I'll use that as a video topic. What I will say is I'm getting ready to roll into the holiday break where I do have my kids, which is going to make it really complicated for me to record in this environment. Actually, I won't, more than likely, unless they leave the house. So I won't be able to, so I'll be doing a lot of remotes, a lot of in-vehicle type stuff, but then I can hit those questions and just make those standalone videos on that. Have a great Monday evening, and I'll chat with you guys in the next video. Take care.